Aquilo, Season 4, Chapter 5, All the Dead Things We Meet. "Would you like to come?" It wasn't the question I was expecting after the sudden revelation from Ophelia. For 2 days, I've seen the newcomer sitting in my cafe, enjoying the chai latte I'm trying to perfect, all while knitting a sweater for a dead man. I've obviously been through a lot after taking over ownership of the Aquilo and, along with it, assuming the responsibilities of my great-grandaunt Doris. Through it all, however, I remain a reasonable, well-grounded woman. If I hear the floor of my apartment creak as I lie in bed at the edge of sleep, I assume it's the house settling, not a malevolent apparition. Screams in the forest are foxes wailing, and I know I'm far more likely to die hit by a car when venturing out into the fog than I am to fall prey to a vampire. When Ophelia invites me to join her at the Remington residence so I can bear witness to her offering the gift of a sweater to Gary Remington, I assume it's his widow who commissioned it in honor of her deceased husband. What else could it possibly be? I don't know, I answer, too stunned to say anything but the truth. I've been warned to stay away from there by Adele, and I'm not so sure Julia has much patience left for me either. Okay, so the latter statement might be an exaggeration. Julia is far too kind-hearted to express resentment for my long string of failures to bring peace to her husband. It's me who's too ashamed of my shortcomings to want to show my face there again. Not until I have a solution I can be confident will bridge the gap between living and dead, between wife and husband. Adele won't be there. Ophelia smiles, folding the sweater with the same care I would apply to packing a mirror-glazed cake. She has business in Montreal, and we both know Julia would be glad to see you under any circumstances, wouldn't she? The way she twirls her needles before slipping them in her knitting bag, she looks like a hunter brandishing her spears. If they weren't such dainty-looking things, I'd think there was almost something lethal and predatory in those needles. Morbid thoughts of how they might be used for violence intrude into my mind. I shake them off, but the dread feeling remains. Why, though? Ophelia stands from her stool before shrugging. I don't know. I thought it might be interesting for you, since you know the family and all that. If you're not up for it, I'll understand. With precision she's so far reserved for her needlework, Ophelia stabs right at my curiosity. All this talk of spoons and my ancestors, and now she has a sweater for Gary Remington. I'm not made of wood. I absolutely need to know what this is all about. Maybe I can talk to Julia about trying the cake again. Or better yet, no, I'd be glad to go. I'm just surprised by the invitation. She winks at me, putting those laugh lines of mischief on full display. Like I said, you know the family. Meet me in front of my store around 9? She picks up her cat and walks out the door as I mumble my agreement. The chimes sing her farewell, but she doesn't bother looking back. As I watch Ophelia walk down the street, across the front window of the Aquilo Cafe, I put on a smile of my own. Maybe, without Adele. As soon as Stefan shows up for his shift, I don't even so much as give him a chance to speak. Here, I toss him his apron. I've got stuff to do in the kitchen before I go. The last thing I want is him distracting me with his concerns about Nancy Tripoli. This might be my best chance to fix things with Julia. With Gary. Without Adele to sour my mood and my intent, I'll have the clarity to repeat the success of what has become my most practiced spell. But I can't have other thoughts and doubts crowding the back of my brain. The best recipes are the simplest. Too many ingredients, too many steps, and you wind up with a mess where you should have a cake. It's like overworking pie crust. But Stefan tries to interrupt, but I won't let him. You have a customer. And he does. Helmut Hans is there, standing at the register. If he asks for his usual, Stefan will be best positioned to make it happen. Meanwhile, I hide in the kitchen, mixing batter and warming the oven. I just hope there are still some of the glyphs Julia drew for me in the drawer. In the end, I make 3 cakes. A practice one without the glyph on rice paper at the bottom, just to make sure I can still make the recipe I've done almost 100 times over the last few years. The other 2 are the real thing. Proper, magical orange poppy seed honey cakes. Mixed with the right tools, my own wooden spoon, and with the correct rituals and intentions. Here, the secret ingredient is literally love. The love of Julia for her husband, expressed on the messy little drawings she left me so I could make the cakes for her. Of the 2, I pick the one I feel best about. The prettiest one, yes, but also the one I think looks most like the first one I baked for the Remingtons. It's a little less perfect, a little smaller, but it also has the strongest smell, and just like that first cake so long ago, it fogs up the plastic window on the box where I put it. Miriam? Stefan tries to accost me as I'm about to walk out of the egg willow. The place looks packed, which makes me smile. There's a woman at the cash with 2 jars of my apple butter waiting to pay. I know her, too. It's Vicky Paramore, and her usual is green tea with just a touch of cream. On days when it's dead, I like to listen to her talk of her dreams of becoming an actress. She could probably pull it off, too. She certainly has the looks and the presence. Clever, too. Very good at picking up on conversational cues. If I were more shallow, I'd be absolutely jealous. "Are you okay?" I ask Stefan as I make my way around the counter. "You're as pale as whipped cream." Hopefully, it can wait until I'm back from the Remington mansion. He hesitates, taking a breath to read me. I can see him do it. His eyes going left to right as if I were a paragraph of an article he's struggling to understand. "I think I found Nancy." "That's great." I'm relieved and gift him with a hurried but compassionate smile. I damn near skip my way to the door before pointing to Vicky and mouthing the word customer to him. But instead of jumping to the register and processing the transaction like a good little employee, he stares at me with his fish-white skin and his pleading eyes. There's a split second during which I balance between leaving and staying a moment to hear him out. If he's found his roommate and she's fine, where's the smile? Where's the relief? This is not the face of a happy Stefan. Sure, it's not that different from his usual demeanor. His is not a personality that expresses emotion with ease, which makes it all the more disquieting to see what could easily be mistaken for distress or confusion in his features. The tip of my fingers brush back and forth on the bottom of the cake box I'm holding, reminding me of its presence and the precious cargo within. I don't know how many more chances I'm going to have with Gary. This could be my last. And so, I tilt on that side. With a wave of the hand, I bid Stefan farewell, immediately turning my head away so I don't have to see his reaction. I'm not 1 block away when I already feel bad about that decision. The night is cool but humid. It's the kind of evening that tricks you into turning off the air conditioner, only to wake up hours later in a pool of your own sweat. I wish I could see the moon or the stars, or maybe a few clouds to judge what the wind is like, but the sky is covered by one uninterrupted blanket. I finally make it to where the Douglas print shop used to be. It's a narrow building that, in hindsight, was ill-suited for a print shop. It felt like a cramped hallway filled with copiers and lamination machines. I doubt it's all that much better for a boutique knitting store, but I don't know how Ophelia laid out her space. Maybe she got clever with it. Carved into an oval sign made of painted wood, I can see the words, "Pearls of Wisdom," lit by dim halogen spots. I try to bury my sneer under an uneasy smile. How many knit shops have that name across North America? The logo is no more inspired. A ball of wool shaped like an orange, smiling cat with needles stabbing it in the back. It would be morbid if not for the cartoony aesthetic. "Miriam, you made it!" There she is, Ophelia. I still need to catch her last name, but I suspect it's something as eccentric as her first, if only to complete the ensemble. She's changed out of her sweater and jeans to put on a country girl dress accented with a shawl. I use the word accented with undeserved generosity. It looks like a warm olive color, and her dress is aged pink with white or beige pinstripes. Under her arm, she's carrying a large, worn leather purse with William the cat's head poking out of the top. Wouldn't miss it. I try to infuse my answer with as much enthusiasm as I can, but the doubt and trepidation make it hard to sound genuine. Thankfully, it seems like the box in my hands has more of her attention than whatever it is I might be saying. So, she asks, leaning in to get a glimpse through the box's plastic window. Is baking like a security blanket for you or something? What? What a curious, borderline insulting assertion. I'm sorry, it's just you always seem to be hiding behind a croissant or a cake. I don't even know where to begin with this. I didn't come here to get psychoanalyzed by some crazy cat lady. And I certainly have no intention of justifying my passion for pastries and pies. Cooking's my love language, and Julia's my friend, I explain. We've all got our thing, don't we? I nudge my head in the direction of her backstabbed cartoon cat logo. I aim to flip the tables on her, maybe even stab back a little, but all I get is a broad and toothy smile that can't possibly be sincere. Fair enough. Hopefully it's better than your croissants. She winks. She winks like her opinion of my croissants is this inside joke we share. This is all good fun for her, but I just want to stab those knitting needles through her eyes. No one would have to know. Well, it was Gary Remington's favorite. This gives her pause. There are cracks to that good humor of hers after all. Ah, she says, delighting me with her sudden hesitation. Well, we should probably be going then, shouldn't we? The 10-minute drive to the Remington mansion is spent in relative silence. I say relative because, while we don't exchange any further words, the radio in Ophelia's little white Fiat blares a series of folk songs that I would have probably enjoyed under different circumstances. Having her sing along to them at the top of her lungs sours the drive. William, hiding in his leather bag, meows through the entire experience. Ophelia seems to think he's singing along, but I get it, William. I wish she'd just shut up for a minute, too. I sit quietly through the trip, my orange poppy seed honey cake carefully balanced on my lap. It hits me that I'm still wearing my egg willow apron. I can feel my little notepad and wooden spoon through the front pocket. I must have been in quite the rush to get out of the cafe, and it betrays my anxiety with the situation. Ignoring Ophelia, this is an important opportunity. It might be my last chance to get back into the swing of things. By the time we arrive at the mansion, my palms are clammy with sweat and my fingers are slick. I can feel the fibers in the cardboard of the box I'm holding, rubbing off with the humidity in my hands. I want to blame the warm night, but the shiver that travels from my shoulders all the way down to the small of my back absolves the weather of any wrongdoing. As if prompted by a movie director, the moon makes a brief appearance between the clouds, just above the mansion's roof. It adds just a touch of ominous foreboding that I'm not at all happy with. Ophelia doesn't know it yet, but we are in the business of dealing with the restless dead. Tonight, whether I mend the bridge between Julia and her husband or not, she may very well witness something that will stretch the limits of her imagination. She grins at the moon's short presence, giving it the kind of nod one would keep for a good omen. All I can think of is the ominous weight of the coming minutes. Oh, Miriam, Julia calls out from the porch. I'm so glad you're here. She walks down the steps to come meet us, clad in her usual black. From the black flowing dress to the black loose-knit shawl, Julia wears the timid smile of fragile hope. She wasn't too hard to convince, Julia asks, turning to Ophelia. Was she? Her bony fingers wrap around my hands, careful not to crush the box I'm holding. She knows what precious cargo I carry and, hopefully, shares my optimism. Tonight is the night. Tonight, Gary's spirit will rest. Not at all, Ophelia says, slinging her bag over her shoulder. She was more than happy to accompany me. Right, Miriam? Something about the question tastes wrong, like someone mistook sugar for salt. Everything else is fine. The words are all the right ones and in the correct order, but they make me want to gag. Good, good. I think we've both been looking so much forward to this. Now come. Julia pulls at my hand, making me almost drop the box and cake onto the tiled driveway. All the care and delicate touches are abandoned for expediency. She might as well have forgotten how important my cargo is to the success of this evening. Adele won't be back until tomorrow, Julia explains as we walk through the threshold of her home. She won't interfere with anything, and once she's back... She fails to finish her thought, letting it drift as our steps echo on the marble floor. Walking into the Remington home at night is always a special thing. At first, the large rooms and classic decor, along with the sparse use of light, make it feel like a haunted house, which I suppose it is. Inevitably, however, the veil is lifted by the sound of clattering claws and hurried panting. Hello, Oswald. Julia's enormous Great Dane greets visitors with unwavering joy. I want to use him as a sort of barometer of people. Dogs are good judges of character, and Oswald's tolerance of Julia's daughter is so far her only redeeming quality. I'm curious to see how he'll react to William and to Ophelia. His huge jowls rub against the leather bag under Ophelia's arm, sniffing and licking his chops like a starving beast over a dead prey. As annoying as I find the woman, I worry for her cat's well-being. It's never a good idea to introduce two potentially volatile animals without care. Oh, Ophelia coos at the big dog. What's this? You smell something you like in there? Maybe a little treat? Huh? Smell something delicious? I can't imagine she's talking about William. I can see the cat sneering at Oswald while Ophelia rummages through the bag. The Great Dane seems indifferent to the snarling and hissing feline, focused instead on whatever object Ophelia pulls out. Is this it, huh? Is this what you've been sniffing? She opens her hand to reveal what, to the untrained eye, might look like a gingerbread cookie, all done up with royal icing and everything. It's a fancy dog treat, and Oswald must have smelled the damn thing from across the mansion. Think what I will about Ophelia. She came prepared. But now I have to ask myself, prepared for what exactly? The sweater, the cookie, and where do I fit in all of this? Well, Ophelia says, wearing her brightest smile yet, now that the master of the house has been appeased, shall we get down to business? Julia brings us up the familiar path, up the stairs and down the dark corridor, all the way to the very back of the mansion. I've been here countless times, and still I get shivers down my spine. I know what awaits us when we reach our destination. At one time, it was the scene of the sweetest reunion. Once a week, I would bring an orange poppy seed honey cake for Gary Remington, and through the bridge of the offering and the call of Julia's undying love, he would manifest. For a brief moment, I would watch them, the quick and the dead, reunited before I left them alone. But something went wrong. 2 months ago, Thomas Sinclair messed things up I messed things up by bringing Sinclair. I got lazy. I got careless. I allowed intent to slip from my work and focus to spoil from lack of care. Something broke in the bridge that allows Gary to step through the veil. His spirit is restless, aggressive, and dangerous now. He's every bit the deadly poltergeist from horror stories. And I've been trying ever since to appease him without success. Until tonight. Something about tonight tells me that everything is about to change. The three of us stand in front of Gary Remington's office. When I first saw it, the place was a mess, but it was a lived-in mess. Papers and books littered the place, covering his desk. It's still a mess, but more in line with what one might expect from the aftermath of a nuclear explosion. The floor is splintered where Gary tried to claw Thomas in half. The shelves are barren, their contents scattered and thrown whenever anyone would dare enter the office. The remains of many cakes that have gone unconsumed litter the floor, along with the shattered pieces of an Aquilo mug. I know what awaits us once we open the door, and Julia knows too, but Ophelia, the poor girl, is busy pulling out the sweater she knit for Gary. Her biggest concern is freeing William's claws from the garment without damaging it. "Shall we?" I ask, the trepidation obvious in my voice. The ghost of Gary Remington hasn't hurt me yet, but it has become more and more aggressive with every effort of mine to appease him. The tension in the night's air lends weight to the possibility that this might be the riskiest attempt yet. I offer the box to Julia. It's my spell, but it's her husband, and thus her responsibility to do the offering. "Oh," she says, waving me away. "I won't be needing that." "What?" "The cake," Ophelia cuts in, holding out the brown sweater folded neatly over her arm. "It won't be necessary." With the tips of her fingers, as if picking up the most delicate lace, Julia plucks the garment away from Ophelia. Her jaw quivering and her lips tight, she holds the sweater up and takes a good look. Waves from her emotional tremors travel down the shirt as she struggles to contain her tears. "It's perfect," she breathes, "like it was stolen from the past." Ophelia's hand moves to her heart, clutching at her breastbone. Her own eyes water at the compliment as she mouths a silent "thank you." The whole scene is as moving as it is confusing. What's going on? Normally, I'd be a little hurt that all my efforts are going to waste, but the surreal quality of what's happening numbs the sting. For now. But I try to ask why I'm here, but there's nothing I can say. I don't know how to put the words together in the right order to cook a proper question. Instead, I watch my friend give a perfect stranger the warmest of hugs before turning around to put a hand on the ornate handle of her husband's office. Bearing the full weight of the moment, Julia takes a deep breath before turning the handle and pushing the door open. The office is much as I remember it from only a few days ago. I can see half a dozen cardboard boxes, each emblazoned with the Aquilo Cafe's logo. They're strewn about, here and there, on the floor and in the ruins of the desk. One is even stuck to the far wall next to the window. I wince at so much evidence of my past failures. Somehow, none of those cakes were right for the job. Something fundamental was wrong with each and every one of them. Drinking in the devastation, I'm beginning to guess what it is I might have done wrong. What the ingredient that slipped into the recipe unnoticed might have been. I can see now and understand that while I was trying to bring peace to Gary Remington, I gave him cakes that tasted of anger. "I get it," I whisper to myself. Julia, frail but brave, walks into the remains of the room. She clutches the sweater with the same intensity as a child might hold onto a teddy bear on a stormy night. Next to me, I can see Ophelia shiver before pulling the shawl over her shoulders. The cold is real, flowing from the office like a torrent of frigid air. The breath out of Julia's mouth can be seen, a cloud of life in a room filled with death. "Gary?" Julia speaks into the dark. Her voice has a tremor in it, and I can't blame her. Gary isn't what he used to be. She has every reason to be afraid. I take a step forward, intent on pulling my friend out of there before something unfortunate happens to her, but it's too late. Gary is here. I can see his shape first as Julia's breath crawls around him, then as a faint reflection in the cracked window behind. The cold intensifies and the air starts to bite at my skin. I can only imagine how frigid the interior of the office might be, but Julia holds fast. With her fingers, so white they almost glow, she holds up the sweater to her invisible husband. The garment moves, as if picked up by a gentle wind. "Dear God," Ophelia breathes out. She can see him too. The shape of him is clearer now, his features materializing out of a light shining from somewhere beyond our world. It's Gary as I first met him, and I sigh in relief. For now, at least, gone is the clawed and distended monstrosity that nearly cut Thomas Sinclair into pieces. Close enough to wrap his arms around Julia stands a man that could pass for a college professor, balding head, glasses, and cardigan included. Gary's ghostly hands find the tear in the front of the sweater, and he pokes a finger through it, smiling as he does. There are quiet memories being relived between these two. While this is not a sweater he owned, a convincing replica at best, it's enough to conjure souvenirs of something precious and terribly private. The apparition plucks the sweater from Julia's grasp, and with gentle care, he slips it on, savoring the knitting against his form. It's an awkward fit. The shirt is a little too big, and it looks bulky over all the layers of other clothing, but I can't deny that it looks cozy. In fact, I can almost feel the warmth of it from where I stand. The ghost of Gary Remington emanates comfort as he leans in to take his living wife into his arms. They cling to each other for an interminable length of time, one that must have felt much too brief to them. Pulling away, Gary looks deep into Julia's eyes. So deep, in fact, he might be about to fall right into her. I've never seen him so tangible. The corridor where we stand is as warm as a summer night now, sleepy and inviting. Finally, Gary, with a tear that looks much too real crawling down his cheek, leans in to give his wife a kiss. One final kiss. And then he's gone. Forever. The word feels heavy as I let it out. No one but my small coterie of friends here, but the sheer weight of it seems to fill the Aquilo Cafe's dining room. It's rather impossible that anyone else has heard it. The early lunch crowd is thick and noisy. The weather is crisp and sunny, and while the temperature is cool, there's a festive aroma to the day. I'd be tempted to blame it on a Friday, but there's something positively electric about the atmosphere. So, Annabelle leans in over her books, pen in hand, but rapt at retelling of the night's events. She's also a witch? I don't know. I try to explain as I measure out some matcha powder for a drink. I don't even know if I'm supposed to call myself that, or Doris, or anyone. Stuff is complicated. No more complicated than knowing if you're a cook, Olivia counters. It's been a while since I've seen her without her business attire, which is odd, as this is prime apple season, and you'd think she'd be working on selling her ciders to as many retailers as possible. You're a cook if you cook. It's not very complicated. Honey, what makes you think witchcraft would be any different? Okay, that's a fair point, but I'm in no mood to concede it. What gets me, I say, changing the subject a little, is how similar it all was to what I do. Except when she did it, it worked. Olivia sips her coffee and grimaces, still unsatisfied with my use of the French press. She then tilts her head to take one long, thorough, judging look at me. And you're not angry at that? Angry? Not at all. I'm delighted. I've never seen Julia so at peace. Sad, heartbroken, but rested. Why would I be angry? Books slam closed and a pen clicks. Annabelle has given up on studying for the moment, far more invested in the conversation. I don't know, Miriam, she says. You're usually not one who likes to be outplayed. Remember Fred and Petunia? I didn't get outplayed then, and I'm not getting outplayed now. I'm happy for Julia now. No one's doubting how you feel about Julia, honey, Olivia interrupts. What we're asking is how you feel about that Ophelia. I empty my measuring spoon into a mug, tapping it on the rim to make sure as much matcha makes it into the mix as possible, and to waste as many seconds as I can while I gather my thoughts. How do I feel about Ophelia? Annoyance, of course. She's grating and subtly insulting. I'm also a little fascinated by her. Where did she learn to do what she does? Is she as new at all this as I am? She seemed surprised to see the ghost of Gary Remington, even though she knew he was the one the sweater was made for. Part of me wishes she'd never come to town, but if I blink, by the time I open my eyes, I'll want to learn every little thing about her. It should have been me, I say. I should have found a way to grant Mr. Remington his final rest, not her. Why does she know how to do it and I don't? With a smile and a sigh, Olivia finishes her coffee and puts her mug down. Unlike most times when she would push it forward for a refill, she holds on to it. Oh, honey, what makes you so sure you don't already know? There she goes, dropping cryptic words into serious conversations. Sometimes I think Olivia tries too hard to be the mysterious guide to my journey in Aquilo, all while I need as much clarity and information as possible. I'm about to protest when I'm interrupted by Stefan's arrival. Per usual, he's there a solid but exact 5 minutes before his shift begins. I sometimes wonder if he gets here even earlier and waits around the corner for the appointed time. I'm not unhappy to see him, though. Thinking and talking about Ophelia and the Remingtons doesn't bring out the best feelings in me. It's a sort of dull pain, not unlike when I found out about my ex-boyfriend Trevor and his little side dish Cindy. Yes, I feel like Julia and Gary cheated on me with Ophelia. Thank the mother you're here, I tell Stefan as a greeting. I'm just going to finish this matcha latte and get right out of your way. I'm about to turn and get the milk, trying to remember if the customer specified almond or cow, when Stefan's fingers wrap around my shoulder, spinning me around to face him. I offer no resistance, both stunned by the force he applies and by the very idea that he would touch me without permission or apology. Once I see his face, though, I get it. I've seen that look before. The wide eyes and strained eyebrows. The face pale from lack of blood. I can almost feel the sweat in his palm through my shirt. The last time I saw that face was in the mirror, less than an hour after stumbling on the body of Clara Payne, not 4 blocks from where I stand. I found her, Miriam, he says with cold emotion. I found Nancy. Aquilo is written by J.F. Dubow and narrated and produced by me, Amy Frost. If you enjoyed this podcast and would like to hear more, please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts or your preferred podcast platform. Want to support the show? Buy us a coffee. Go to ko-fi.com/Aquilo to donate. Aquilo has a Patreon. Visit patreon.com/Aquilo for details. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram under the username Aquilo.